Hi, fellow classmates, instructors, and friends. This is Ginny, your humble TCM student who knows absolutely nothing about this field, but wanted to start this audio journal to record everything TCM. If you would like to join my study group as well, please come learn with me. And let's get healthier by healing our bodies from the inside out holistically together. Hey Google fam, thank you so much for tuning back with me for another study session. Jennifer is joining back with us today to talk about another set of Zhangfu organs, which is the lung and your large intestine. So with this pairing I thought was very odd because who would have thought your lungs is connected to your large intestine? But apparently, linking the dots right now, from an episode I had with Desiree before, which is another practitioner, she mentioned that the pairings are odd because of the meridians. The meridians are close in proximity on your body. That's why they're linked. Like, is that true, Jennifer?
Well, I hope it is. So what she's actually saying is that the organs, lung, large intestine, and all of the other Zhangfu organs, when we think about it in Chinese medicine, we have the organ itself, but we also have the meridian pathway that we study in Chinese medicine, which can pass through the organ, but also go to other places, which creates that connection. So when you say, oh, well, someone has dry eyes and it might be their liver, it's because the pathway is going from the liver through the upper chest and actually also passing through the eye, the eyeball, and behind the eye as well. So that's what we say by the connections. And for the lung and large intestine, they have this relationship because of their overlapping pathways, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. It does. For today's episode, there's a topic that I'm kind of excited to cover, only because it's become so popular, which is cannabis, which is weed. Weed versus the lungs. Like, I'm excited to chat about that, but that would come later in the episode. But so to start, can you explain to me what each of the organs' functionalities are? So Zhang organ is the lung, and then the Fu organ is the large intestine. If you could give us a quick explanation in terms of what they do and in a TCM perspective, what they kind of govern and control.
Yeah, so before we talk about the organs themselves, it's important to know why this pair. So everything in Chinese medicine is yin and yang, and you can think of it as the same way for Zhang Fu. One is yin and one is yang. And the one that's yin represents something that's holding the more actually important aspect, which is why actually that organ, when you call it out, it goes first because it has more of that nourishing main function aspect. And then the Fu or the pair organ is more of the supporter. So kind of like the scaffold of your house, you have the structure that's holding it, but everything that's inside is really important. The material you choose, the plumbing, the insulation, that you can assume to be more of the Zhang yin organ. And the yang organ is more of the Fu supporting aspect. So the lung in Chinese medicine is responsible for many things. Most importantly would be protecting our body with an invisible layer of qi that we call wei qi. And that translates to a wall of qi. That is really created through our inhale, exhale, breathing all day long. That's why it's really important to take deep breaths, slow breaths, because this dispersion of air is sending energy. So when you breathe in, you feel that your lungs are filling up. And when you breathe out, you hear this exhale of sound, and you can imagine that the sound and also the qi that comes with that is dissipating across your entire body from up to down. So it's creating this invisible layer. And why it's important to protect the lungs, especially when seasonal changes or when you're thinking about protection from the flu, because that energy layer is first attacked by exterior pathogens such as wind or cold. So in Chinese medicine, you can actually catch a cold, even though I think some other practices disagree. But you can actually catch a cold, and the lung is protecting you from all of that. And also the lung is similar to in Western medicine, the function of lung is breathing and circulating oxygen, but it's really important to know that it is governing the qi that the body is producing through breathing. So this immunity layer that we call Wei Qi is one of the main functions of the lung.
So is this layer kind of like a shield in a way, like your first protection for blocking any sort of like sickness or pathogens from penetrating?
Yeah, more or less. And pathogens as in invisible ones. So you can't always see all the pathogens. Of course, for example, viruses may be airborne. That's an example of a invisible pathogen.
Right.
But also in Chinese medicine, we consider cold, wind, snow, ice, all the things that we're thinking about as external pathogens. Those are also something that can harm the body. So maintaining lung health means that you have the ability to transcend the qi across your body and create this invisible layer in a way.
So if you work out regularly or work out a lot, you're kind of working out your lungs as well, right? Can you create more of that qi or like thicken that layer of protection, or does it not work that way? You know what I mean? Like the more you work out, the thicker your shield would be.
It definitely doesn't work that way.
Yeah, see, I just want to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think working out, really, this is a huge topic, but working out for everyone can look differently.
Yes.
Some people benefit from aerobic exercises. Other people benefit more from anaerobic exercises. So all of those different types of workouts and the amount of workouts is really important to maintain. But to increase your lung qi and to make sure it's healthy and vital comes from seasonal eating. So definitely during the fall and autumn time, that is the lung season. So the lung and the large intestine represent fall and autumn, as well as the metal element. And during that time, you should make sure to have more moisturizing foods, as well as having some pungent flavors, because pungency kind of disperses things. If you think about cinnamon or maybe even garlic or onion, they have that not too spicy, but a little bit of something to just give it a kick. That's the idea of waking up lung qi. And it's also a huge topic, lung health in general, of course, with COVID. So knowing that it's your immunity layer and protecting your lungs from smoke or other kinds of, unclean air is important, but also breathing. I think a lot of us forget that we need to take slow breaths, deep breaths. And a lot of my clients really benefit from some breathing exercises that I teach them, in addition to some lung meridian massages. So, yeah, lung is very important.
Yeah. For the fu organ, which is the large intestine, so there's something cool about the lungs, which it creates this invisible shield, right? Is there something cool about large intestine as well? Or is it just, as we all know, it just move waste?
Which is a very important concept. And if you can think about that relationship again, the zhang fu, if one is out of balance, if the lung has any qi stagnation, which can be caused by shortness of breathing or even grief. So each of the zhang fu pairs represent an emotion. And lung, of course, if someone is crying or sobbing or not taking deep breaths, that can create a disharmony between the organ pairs. And large intestine would be, of course, the excretion. And you can see that through the skin because the Zangfu organ pair, lung and large intestine, also manifests on the skin. So if you see any kinds of impurities on your face or anywhere else, that can represent an imbalance between lung and your large intestine. So large intestine is really important, of course, for excretion of all of our toxins, but more on the matter level, the physical things that just need to be released. And when the lung is dry, it can also cause the large intestine to be dry. So again, everything is in relationship to each other. If we don't have enough moisture in the body, the skin may be dry, the colon may be dry. All of those things are in one bucket.
Mm-hmm. So for some reason, the lung is also governing or regulates waterways. Like lung is related to water in some sort of way for sweat, respiration, excretion, and urination. It's kind of strange how the lung is related to those things. Like, could you explain to me how that's related?
So for that, you can really focusing on the sweat and the way the skin transpires water. For urination, that actually more follows under the kidney and bladder zangfu pair. That's more of this huge detoxing of the liquids. But Chinese medicine, we talk about fluids in the body a little bit differently. So sometimes they can be referred to as jing, which is this necessary moisture that, for example, lubricates your joints, lubricates the colon. So we have a nice bedding and everything is soft and plump in our body. But if you have too much water retention or water weight, we can say that maybe the spleen is not in harmony or the kidney and bladder are not in harmony. So the body actually needs a lot of moisture, but it is when we are, for example, overburning or not allowing enough fluids to stay in our body caused by, for example, overworking or staying up super late at night or overworking out or depriving the body of foods while we're working because we're super stressed, emotional things, all those things can start to burn out literally, not just the mental burnout, but the physical burnout of the amount of fluids that are needed in our body. So you can see definitely depends on the type of imbalance, but usually the lung represents more of the skin related things and kidney bladder would represent more of the urinary excretion, detoxing of the fluids, more of like the fluids that you drink or eat, that would be coming out that way.
Got it. So you've already mentioned that the lung and large intestine are related to the metal element and the season for it is autumn. You told us that we should definitely consume foods that are more nourishing and stuff. Do you have recommendation on what kind of foods we should eat during the autumn? You mentioned garlic, cinnamon. Is this right for everyone, or is there like other stuff that we can also consume?
Yeah, anything that's local and available during the season is great, of course, depending on where you live. But a very common fruit to eat during the fall are pears. Well, first, they're in season, but second, pears, when they're cooked with the skin on, is a type of medical treatment for dry throat or coughing or kind of that seasonal transitional cough, because when you cook a pear, it changes its property from a raw pear. So it becomes more moisturizing, and it's a classic recipe for people that are experiencing the seasonal cough. And of course, that's most prone because it's the lung season and it's very dry. It's a huge transition from summer or late summer, which is a yang season, to autumn, which is a yin season. And during that jump from yang to yin, we see a lot of patients that come into the clinic because all of a sudden everything hurts, everything is dry, everything doesn't feel good again. So it's quite common. But I think moisturizing the lung and just making sure that there isn't so much exposure to wind, bundling up, all those things help the lungs.
Mm-hmm. The flavor for this pairing is actually spiciness in the mouth, which I find very odd. I don't think I have ever tasted spiciness in my mouth. I can't imagine someone tasting spiciness in their mouth. That's what I'm trying to say. How potent is this spiciness in the mouth? Like, what kind of spiciness is it? Is it like chili spicy, or is it like cinnamon spicy, or garlic spicy? Like, it's just kind of odd to have that.
Yeah, so I don't think clinically when we diagnose certain conditions, we ask for one of the tastes, for example, bitter or sweet or any of the 5 tastes related to the 5 Zangfu organ pairs. But for spiciness, it's not so much of the taste in this sense. It would be more of the flavors that you're going for. But back to what you asked, is it right for everyone? I don't actually know if it is right for everyone because it's more or less a general guideline. And why I like this 5 seasons, 5 tastes is because it reminds us that we need a little bit of everything, because that is the representation of completion and whole. And through cycling through these throughout the year, we're reminded, oh yeah, well, lung and large intestine time, so let's pay attention to it. And oh, next season is kidney and bladder, and let's pay attention to that. And that's reminding us that we need to take care of our bodies cyclically throughout the year, and different organs get attention.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if someone has a constitution or their body type is a little bit more blocked, like constipated, or maybe if they're like really irritable, I wouldn't really recommend spicy ingredients because that kind of just adds fuel to the fire.
Right.
So while these things are guidelines, recommendations, it really depends on the person to know themselves what their constitution is.
So if you're craving for spicy food, then that means that your lung and large intestine want some love. Is that what it is?
It could be.
Okay.
Also, it depends on the craving and when. Typically, if someone craves any of the foods, it's more about the deficiency. And it's a very different way compared to Western thinking. The need to focus on the thing that you don't have. So if you have the spicy foods, you're actually focusing on where is my weak area, or what is something that's in balance that's causing me to have this spicy craving. So it's less about, I'm spicy foods, let's eat spicy all the time. It's okay, there's a disbalance because I'm craving that, and maybe I have low energy and I need to get really woken up, because spice is a very young element. It makes everything alive and shooken up. But if you need that all the time, this person can feel chronically fatigued, or maybe they're just not as expressive as they need to be. So they need some ingredients or foods to support them. And from the TCM side, we would say, okay, this person may be Qi or blood deficient, maybe some lifestyle changes, herbal recommendations, acupuncture, etc. So it's a little bit different the way you think about cravings.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. I do find myself craving Korean soon tofu, like those soups, and they're usually spicy. And I usually crave for those when I'm actually kind of tired and just weak. So it's interesting that you brought that up, because it's true. You mentioned that the lung and large intestine also links up to our nose, our hair, and skin. Now, I know that the kidney is also linked to hair. A past practitioner, Allison, actually mentioned that I was asking her about balding. You know, if you have a pattern of balding and stuff from like genetics, is that from kidney? And she said, actually, it's got to do more with the hair quality more than balding. So I was wondering what the difference is between the kidney governing the hair versus the lung.
So the kidney and hair is mostly talking about someone's vitality, and the amount of kidney jing can be similar to, well, how many years have you got left in you, in a way. And in the Western sense, that can mean hormones, that can mean fertility, etc. And when your kidney jing goes down, that can represent menopause, or balding. So the hair and kidney represents more of this longevity, vitality, your youthfulness, and it's something that we should always protect. And in the lung, it's more focusing on the skin than the hairs. It could be like hair follicles on your skin. But for hair loss, we really focus on blood, because in Chinese medicine, we also believe blood is an extension of hair. And some people, for hair loss, if it's genetic, we really look at the kidney jing, because the kidney is, not trying to go into too much, but it represents what our parents give us and what we nurture when we go forward. So I would probably focus on kidney for hair-related conditions, kidney and blood deficiencies.
Okay. So with the nose and the skin, like the thing that comes to mind is allergies. So season changing, your nose is going crazy because of allergies, runny nose and stuff. And also like skin-related issues like eczema. That, you said, has got to do with your large intestine. And I personally have eczema myself. And I actually went to see a naturopath a few years ago. Shout outs to Tiffany. But she said it really got to do with your gut. She kind of put me on a path where, TMI, I wasn't shitting every day. So she basically told me that, okay, you need to, drink this concoction of like, I don't know, you got to have chia seeds every day, black sesame, and like you also have to have flax seeds, and, put me on a bunch of stuff, to try to regulate my poop, I guess. So it's funny how she's doing that and this is also related. Does that mean that if you have a good pooping cycle, like if you poo every day and you're healthy with that, it means that your skin would be clear?
Definitely, yes. And the reasons for not pooping are many. It can be, like I mentioned before, this lack of hydration between the lungs and the large intestine. But some people can drink so much water and they're still not going because there could be an emotional aspect. So we have to remember that the whole body, the thoughts, the stress, the foods that we eat, the environment that we're in are all super important to ensuring a healthy bowel movement. And one of my teachers, he gives a great example, and he says, look at the way animals go to the toilet. They're sniffing, they're finding a comfortable environment, they feel safe, they like it, then they go. And that should be assumed also for us humans. So when we're going on holiday or going on vacation, usually the first thing for a lot of people that have chronic bowel movement issues is that you're backed up. And because you're in a new environment, you're, uncertain. So those things also play into the bowels. But for eczema, that's a little bit different. So for eczema, it really depends on the type. So in TCM, we have to classify the type, the color of the eczema. Is it dry? Is it wet? Et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know for your case. But it does have something to do with your diet, because if you're not digesting something, it's not going to be excreted by the large intestine, and it's actually going to continue to stay as a toxin inside your body. And diets do help, but I think a lot of people with eczema also may have been born with it. And in Chinese medicine, we also focus on a lot of the congenital conditions. So if someone has eczema, they may also have allergies. They may also have childhood asthma. That whole system is all linked together. The lungs, the skin, the digestion, the large intestine. Digestion meaning, right now we're talking about large intestine because digestion means a lot of things. That whole relationship between lung and large intestine may be weakened when you were born. And that's just something to keep in mind, so that usually we recommend patients to focus on this area because that just may be your crutch. You're more prone to allergies than your friend who may have like an irregular period.
Right. I just wanted to ask, like, some people are just born with it and they have like a weaker lung and a large intestine. So does that mean that your parents are also weak in that or have an imbalance in that when conceiving you?
So I think it's important to think about the emotional aspect or the psyche aspect of everything. What does large intestine represent? What does bowel represent? You're moving something, letting go of something, passing something that's toxic. And maybe there's a tendency to hold on to many things, thoughts or things, or, a type of holding on in your body. And I think sometimes when we think about only the functional aspects, it's not enough because the other part is the psyche. So usually, yeah, I think if we don't always have to pin it back to our parents, but sometimes we do carry those things. For example, if someone is pregnant and during that time she was really stressed or going through a big move or change in life, of course that affects the child. But in the end, we all have a choice. We are born with our bodies, but I believe that we have a choice to let certain conditions manifest or not. And that's why I really go back to the psyche, the mind part of things, because there's something that we can always discover there.
If you are yin deficient in these organs, what are some of the symptoms that we can see? Like, I want to know, like, the yin deficient part and the yang deficient part. What kind of symptoms do we see in those? And are there any foods that we could potentially buy to help with our diets, like from just like grocery store and everything, so we could try to help rebalance ourselves before we see a practitioner?
Yeah, so yin deficiency depends in many different ways. If we're talking outside of lung and large intestine, a person who's yin deficient may have difficult sleeping, may have insomnia, may feel really dry, their tongue may be super red with no coating. And what yin means is that what I mentioned before, the essential fluids that we need in our body, the right amount, not too little, just the right amount. And so when someone is yin deficient, you can imagine that they're more or less burning it out. There's yin that's deficient, the fluid, the right amount of fluid is deficient. So that might show up as, like I said, just a little bit of restlessness or irritability, also dry stool, maybe constipation, etc. For those kinds of conditions, it's hard to recommend specifically what one should eat because it's pretty personal. But I think things to avoid would be spicy foods, really strong flavored foods, because this heat, it needs to be balanced with something a little bit more temperature cooling. So cucumbers or chrysanthemum, and it needs to have a moment for the body to rebuild fluids because it's like this blazing fire inside. And that can really depend for a lot of different people what their symptoms are, but usually we try to recommend avoid spicy foods, fried foods, greasy foods, barbecue, any of those things that are like a little fire food going inside your belly. You don't need any more fire. You need to put the fire out. So yeah, and I think also herbs are really potent. So usually if someone's yin deficient and they have trouble sleeping or etc., herbs are really effective because they're super potent in helping you put the fire out.
What if it's like the other way around? Now you're yang deficient in those organs. Like what would we see in the symptoms? And again, maybe it's something that we should avoid or if something we could consume for it.
So yang deficiency, and again, this is super generalized. So yang is sun, heat, warmth, going outside, that external layer of your body, the outspoken person. So someone who may be yang deficient can feel a little bit more reserved or a little bit more shy. They may also tend to have cold hands and feet, maybe. Some people can have a mix of both yin and yang deficiency, just a footnote. And for yang deficiency, also sometimes people will have water retention, especially for kidney yang deficiency, or low libido. So all the things that are kind of waking up the body in different areas across these 5 organ pairs, you can see more of a retrieval in a sense. So again, hard to super generalize, but that is like the gross view of yin versus yang deficiency.
Okay. Like, is there a specific yin and yang deficiency within an organ, and these are the specific symptoms you'll see? Or is it like just as a whole?
Everything as a whole. So when we diagnose a patient, we first try to understand their immediate patterns. So is it insomnia? Is it constipation? Is it bloating, IBS? What is the immediate? And we try to figure out which organ pairs are affected. Most of the time, by the time someone comes to an acupuncturist, they've usually tried a lot of things. And at that point, they have multiple zangfu organs that are affected, because everything is in relationship. Just like the seasons, the growth of autumn to winter to spring to summer to late summer, each of those 5 seasons represents a cycle. They also represent zangfu organ pairs. And in this growth cycle, we can see that if one breaks down, then one cannot nourish the next one, and that one's malnourished, and then it's just a chain reaction.
Yeah.
So everything is always in relationship to each other. So what we're trying to do in TCM diagnosis is to figure out the pattern. What is your particular pattern? So we were talking more about pattern diagnosis, because it's never just, okay, well, only lung deficiency, or only. Maybe it is, but very rarely, because like I said, most of the time people come after they've tried a bunch of stuff, are really stressed out, have had, some years of accumulated health issues. And yeah, it's usually multi-zangfu organ related.
Got it. With talking about, the imbalances and stuff, is there a way to help us balance ourselves with, I don't know, do you have any tips in regards to like any routines that we should have, or any habits we should pick up? I know we kind of talked about food already. Do you have any tips for those, in particular to the lung and large intestine?
Yeah, I think taking notice of your pattern during the autumn and fall time would be the first step. So do you start to get a blocked nose? Do you, every year have this thick mucus cough, or maybe you have a dry cough? All of those things probably happen to your body every time fall hits. And I think that would be the first step, is to notice what are the things that are happening. Then just general recommendations usually look like drinking a lot of warm things, making sure that you're bundling up, because wind, when it attacks the body, can be quite exhausting for the body to fight off, especially when it's in this transitional moment from yang, which is summer, using all of your energy, being outside, and then yin, which is a little bit more colder, darker. Your body has to catch up to protecting itself. So the more you can do to prevent your body from working extra hard, meaning bundling up, making sure you go outside with a hat and gloves, and just protecting yourself from the outside forces, the more your body can not have to work so hard to deal with this seasonal transition. And I think naturally most people start to crave different foods.
Yeah.
If we're really listening to it, we notice, and also the foods that we want are a little heavier, a little warmer, more soup-like. So I think a lot of us more or less know And we crave, salads or raw things much less. But I do think that if you have, coughs or something like that, it's better to take care of it in the beginning than to kind of let your body keep fighting it more and more. And usually we're always prescribing the pear soup. So how to make it: you take one whole pear with the skin and everything. Just cut off the stem, take out the seeds, and what you do is just chop the pear into cubes and cook it in like a saucepan with cover it with water. And usually you can cook it for 30 to 40 minutes, and the whole pear becomes soft and tender. And then when it's done cooking, the traditional recipe in Chinese culture is to add bingtang or rock candy. And that is more of this sweet flavor that kind of lubricates the lung that as we need it to. But if you don't want to add it, it's okay, you don't have to. And how you drink it is you have to drink the pear water, the soup, and also eat the whole pear. And that would be one pear per day for maybe 5 days if you have a minor cough. And usually, medically, sometimes we may recommend someone to have 2 a day for 3 days, and even more depending on how long the person has had something like this. But again, I would recommend if you have something that's more chronic, and especially with COVID, a lot of people may be recovering from some kind of cough. It's just more important to tonify your body with the right herbs, Chinese medicine herbs in formulas, so that it doesn't keep taking energy from your body.
Right. When you say pear, let's be clear, you're talking about Chinese pear?
It actually can be any green pear, the skin green.
Really? So not Chinese
that's about
pear?
the size of your palm. It doesn't have to be Chinese pear.
Oh, okay. Because when you talk about the rock sugar pear soup, I was like, oh, that's the yellow skin pear, which is the Chinese pear. But I guess it's fine for all pears. Okay, cool. So now it comes to a random questions round in relation to these organs. So the first one I have was legalized weed, marijuana. So in Canada recently, cannabis has been booming because it's legalized now. So there's a ton of cannabis stores and it's super popular. I know there are some health benefits to it, and it could be a remedy. Is this actually good for us? You are taking it into your lungs. Like, I just want to know what the TCM perspective of that is.
Yeah, so I personally have a point of view, but I would have to say on behalf of the TCM community, I don't think that there is an integration of this idea of introducing marijuana into our treatment practices, just because TCM usually stays very true and original to the herbs that we use, the meridian system that we use, what we've known for thousands of years. However, I do think it depends. If someone is using medical marijuana for a short amount of time, maybe 1 to 3 months, and maybe it's every other day, and maybe, I don't know if there's a way to get it into a vape form, that can be okay as long as you're not burning out your lungs. But what I have issue with is the smoking, the fire, the dryness, the heat that you intake into your lungs that have this, again, this nice moisture inside that is protecting everything and happy and moist, that makes your skin plump. You notice that smokers, longtime smokers, usually have sagging, hollow skin that's a little bit ashy and dry. Of course, maybe they're probably smoking tobacco or something else and has been for 15, 20, 30 years. But again, in moderation. So I have issue only with the excessive use of and the burning of the throat that sends this fire down to the lungs. But I think if you can find a way to balance it, and it's every day, or if maybe it's a vape form and it is, more for medical use for a condition that you need balancing with, I guess why not try it?
So for the large intestine, there's this huge popular thing about detox. I need to drink my green juice in the morning and do a detox. And with detox, it's supposed to, I can only assume, like it makes you go like crazy. So then you're removing all that waste and then starting fresh again. What's the TCM perspective on detoxing, and is there a way that you would recommend us to detox for the large intestine?
So I will first share some fad diets that I have issue with.
Okay.
Celery juice.
Yes.
There are a lot of people that have been obsessed about celery juice, but it is not for everyone. It is especially not for the people that have low blood pressure or feel weak in the morning or have low memory or maybe really weak around the period time. Celery is not for you. So detox in general, I think also comes for a certain time of year. And usually we recommend it more in the winter time, which is probably not the time people think about it.
Yeah.
Because they think, oh, springtime, it's green, it's fresh, it's waking my body up. There is definitely a biological instinct that kicks in during springtime because we've been hibernating, we want something fresh and tender. The greens are starting to sprout. It totally makes sense because our bodies mirror nature. But from the energetic side, it's not beneficial to detox in the summer or spring because those are both yang seasons. And yang seasons require a lot of energy. They require foods. They require us to go outside, use our bodies. And usually with these detox, and cleanses or diets, there's usually some kind of, like 1 week or even more period of time where you're not eating the certain things that your body needs and you're kind of cutting things out, paying extra attention to those things. So all that energy requires a lot. And it's better to do it in the winter time because that's when the body is more in this yin mode, needs less, so it can handle less of this, nutrition, if you will.
Right.
And it's more in this hibernation mode, technically, although a lot of us are really working like crazy around the end of the holidays or close to the holidays. So yeah, I think TCM, of course, everyone may have a different view, but from my family's tradition and what we usually recommend to patients is a detox, not in the summer or spring, but more in the winter time, and always understand if that detox is for you or not.
Like, what would you take for the detox? Like, are you going to take celery juice in the wintertime? Because I can only assume celery juice is very yin, and you're already in the yin season. Drinking that much celery juice would just make you even more yin.
Yeah, so for some of my patients who want to go on a detox, I create an herbal formula for them to drink. In addition to eating certain types of foods that are most suited for their constitution. So someone who is having irregular periods won't have the same dietary recommendations as like a guy that wants to lose weight and he's been eating a lot of sugar. Those are two different types of detox diets.
Right.
But herbs are really great for multi-organ targeted approach to detoxing because it doesn't just mean eat things, poop it out, eat things, pee it out. It's also maybe for someone that has, especially for men who don't circulate blood as much, meaning men don't get periods, their detox looks different for women who naturally have periods, but maybe they have more emotional stress or they hold on to something else. So everyone's detox looks a little bit different from the TCM side. I know in Western ways, it's more about green juice and I don't know, eating like steamed vegetables 5 times a day for a week. It's a little bit different. It does require also eating more lighter foods because we want the body to not have any new stuff. But also we use a lot of herbal formulas.
Would that be the TCM way to reset yourself? Like to eat more bland food that's like softer so it's easier on the spleen for easy digestion and stuff? Yeah, that was where my thought process is. But yeah, definitely, obviously, herbs are a lot better.
Yeah, but also for the foods, I think if you do eat more simple foods and not raw foods, so the things not to do, that's the theme. No raw foods or like intense ginger shots every day. You know, those things are like really intense and I wouldn't recommend that. But simple foods like steamed ingredients, maybe if you usually cook with a lot of greasy, heavy ingredients, just no greasy ingredients for the week. And I think it really depends. Some people crave coffee. They have to have like 3 coffees a day. That's your detox. No coffee for a week. Just eat whatever you want, but no coffee for a week and see what your body feels like. And you may realize that you're truly deficient and it's time to adjust that instead of masking it with coffee. Or some people have to have like a huge dessert after lunch or after dinner. The detox is to just eliminate that food. It doesn't have to be super complicated over the top. It can just be like one thing that you notice that you're craving a little bit more than usual, or always, it's not just seasonal, but has been, and it's time to take a step back from it and throw that out for the week and see how your body feels. It doesn't have to be always green and bland foods.
Okay, well, that's really good. I think we covered a lot today. It was very fun talking about all of these topics. Obviously, I want to thank you once again. I'll definitely link all of your information to the show notes so they could know where to find you. And yeah, stay tuned for the next episode because she's going to come on for another one to talk about another set of junk food organs with us. And yeah, stay tuned for that one.
If you like this episode, please give it a like. If you would like to hear future episodes, please subscribe. Or if you have any questions about health, please send me an email at kuko.health@gmail.com, which is kuko.health. If you just want to say hi or drop me a DM on Instagram, come follow me at kuko.health, which is again kuko.health. Thank you so much for listening to me today, and please stay warm and healthy out there, and I'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye.